Welcome back, viewers. We were discussing in the last session, in the previous session, the business practices during the medieval period, and we had discussed in detail about the usury, hundi, bills of exchange, how it were in operation, partnership, but we could not discuss another important aspect related to business practices, that was insurance. Related to insurance, I'll just briefly provide you a very brief account of this aspect of insurance. During the 17th century particular, we get definite evidences of the prevalence of insurance. Prior to that, there was we get reference of commenda, where the two merchants or two partners normally used to come together and decided to share the risk of trade. This was commenda. This was a common practice, but insurance, in which insurance we all during the today's world also we call it in Hindi bima. So during the medieval period also it was called as bima. So this bima or insurance, in which the third party, the third person decided or agreed to bear the burden, to bear the risk rather of insurance at a premium. We can call it a insurance, and this entrance of a third person was an important feature of the medieval period. There were these insurance were operating on at two levels. One was insurance of goods as well as the money that was supposed to be transacted, in which the normal rate of interest was charged, or normal rate of not interest, rather normal rate of premium or commission was charged. But there was another aspect of insurance was that in the other method that they used was the insurer normally agreed to pay the taxes, the transport costs, and whatever cost involved in transacting that particular good. These merchant sarrafs normally did through the banjaras, and the group of banjaras that we are going to discuss little later in the personnel of trade. So these two types of insurance were in operation, and the rate of premium and commission on this second type of insurance was much higher as compared to the first one. Similarly, the rate of commission on sea voyages of insurance as compared to land voyages was much higher. Then another important, I'm taking it in very brief because we have to discuss another aspects as well. Another important methods of insurance that were prevalent on sea voyages were two. During the medieval period, these were the respondentia and bottomry. Respondentia, both were the marine insurance. In respondentia, the premium was charged and the goods were insured on the for the voyage, particular voyage, where the goods were going, how much risk was involved, what route it is going to take, all on the basis of all these, the risk of the pirates, on the basis of all these, the premium rates used to be decided. This was called respondentia. There was another practice that became more and more popular, was bottomery. Bottomery was actually the speculative investment. In this speculative investment, it is the lender who is giving the money was bearing the entire risk instead of the merchant. So this method became very popular and prevalent during the 17th century, because though there was high risk involved, but there were on the other side high returns were also ensured, and the rate of premium on these bottomery ranged from 14 to 60%. So risk was very much, but at the same time we find that the returns were also very high. I'm not going to in detail all these practices, but during the closing years, a sort of credit insurance, avak vyaju, was also we get the references, but the avak vyaju, or the credit, means on the credit also the insurance, for the insurance credit also given. This practice became more prevalent during the 19th century. It was not as, we do not get much references to this during the medieval period. Now, the second aspect that we are going to deal the personnel of trade in this session. Important, we have just discussed that how complex operational aspects of the business practices, in how complex way the business practices were in operation. But who were these personnel of trade or personnel involved in these transactions? We are going to confine to this in this session. When I began the first session, I said that the brisk trading activity is the hallmark of feature of the medieval period. There are different opinions of historians since last 3 decades. Number of opinion are put forward that India's trade was, whether it was a peddler's trade, what Fanlier and Neil Steensgaard was emphasizing that it was just the small operations, or it is the Professor Om Prakash who is emphasizing no, it was an Asiatic trade revolution. Similarly, the Ashin Das Gupta and Arasaratnam, who both worked on Surat and Coromandel respectively, they have emphasized that no, the Indian Oceanic trade, it were the Indian merchants played a very important role. So the role of the Indian merchant is of very crucial importance during the, particularly during the medieval period. We are going to discuss in this entire session how different groups of merchants were involved, both inland and foreign. I will be requesting Professor Khan that if he can briefly summarize the various personnel of trade, both inland and those who were involved in foreign long distance trade, as well as the foreign merchants who were involved working and operating in India at various levels. If you please can elaborate on those aspects.
Thank you, Dr. Abha Singh. As we discussed, what we witness in medieval India, those from 1200 onwards, commercial activities are increasing. A large new commercial practices are being introduced. Monetization is growing. All sorts of production levels are increasing. As a result, when all this is booming, then specialized groups of people are also emerging who are doing specialized activities in trading. Say for example, merchants is one such specialized group who is handling the trading activities. Then there were people who are specializing as brokers or dalals, then there are people who are doing money lending or handling the cash in large amounts, the groups of sarrafs and all. So there is a whole range of such personnel who are active in the whole medieval world of trade. And who are these, how they are operating, we will discuss in this segment. So first, let us take the merchants. I won't go into very many details, just briefly give you an idea of the merchants who were handling overall trading activities. Actually, there can be various ways of classifying these merchants. One way of classifying them can be on the basis of their regions where they are located. One way of classifying them can be the people, the type of commodities they are trading in. Another form of classification can be the communities or caste they came from for classifying. What we notice in the merchants is a whole range, and we will give you some broad groups of these. What broad groups we want to discuss with you is, number one, people who were nomadic merchants and they were handling a large amount of local or regional trade, which is the first important group. Second group is who are involved in shops and markets, who are handling at local level or regional level. Then there is a group of merchants who is handling large scale inter-regional and foreign merchandise and trading activities. Then there are merchants who are coming from foreign countries and doing business in India as merchants and all. And on top of that, another category emerges where large companies from different parts of the world, especially Europe, come and do their merchant activities or trading activities in India. So I'll quickly gloss through each of these groups. So the first is what I refer to as a nomadic group of merchants. Why I'm giving them importance at the first level is that agriculture being the main produce in the beginning, this group who was mainly handling agricultural produce and trade in agricultural products is this nomadic or localized merchant group, and the biggest component of this group is Banjaras. In northern India they are called Banjaras. In different parts of the country they are known by different names and different designations. Say in Sindh these nomadic groups are Namadharis, in the Himalayan region they are Bhutiyas, and what are their major things they are handling? I will concentrate on Banjaras, which is the biggest representative of this group. Banjaras was a trading group which moved along with their animals from village to village, from kasbah to kasbah within a larger region, and handling the agricultural produce, grain, salt, butter, ghee, other animal products, or cotton and such things, whatever they could lay their hands on. How big were their operations? Their operations were huge. We get references of European travelers who came to India in 16th, 17th century. They were awestruck by sheer size of the Banjara groups. Peter Mundy writes, I met a Banjara group which had 20,000 cattle with them. Tavernier notices 30,000 cattle with one group. And what were these cattle for? Most of the cattle were to carry the oxen were the main component who will carry the goods. So it was not that they were carrying main items of trade on carts. बैलगाड़ी या गाड़ियों पे नहीं ले जाते थे, बैल के ही ऊपर लाद के ले जाया जाता था सामान, और 10-10, 20-20 हजार तक के इनके एनिमल्स होते थे एक ग्रुप में, और 30-40 लोगों से लेकर 400-500 लोग भी एक ग्रुप में हो सकते थे. ये पूरे ग्रुप्स में मूव करते थे बंजारे ज्यादातर बड़े बड़े ग्रुप्स में. उसका बेसिक ये था कि कोई एक ओन नहीं करता था, अलग अलग फैमिलीज के अपने ग्रुप में एनिमल होते थे, 10-10, 20-20, 40, और वो सारे ग्रुप्स एक साथ चल के मूव करते थे ताकि सिक्योरिटी रहे, सेफ्टी रहे, और एक लार्जर कम्युनिटी टाइप का उनका रहे. और इस पूरे ग्रुप को जो मूव करता था टांडा कहा जाता था, और इनका एक क्लोज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन था जिसका एक हेड होता था जो डिसिप्लिन मेंटेन करता था और जिसके आदेश जनरली मानते थे. सो दिस होल ग्रुप ऑफ बंजारास यूज्ड टू कैरी food grains and produce, they were the main source of supply to the armies wherever they were moving. Whenever large armies of a few thousand soldiers are moving and they needed large amounts of food products to consume, and these banjaras will provide. Similarly, these banjaras will buy grain and food from villages and take them to kasbas and towns and transferring. Banjaras developed as a local merchants, but at times these banjaras were being hired by bigger merchants in towns and all to carry their own goods and all. So they had a close organizations, mainly handled agrarian products. What was the biggest advantage? That the animals who were carrying their goods can graze on the way and move. So their movements were slow, but at the same time cheap and economical, because much expenses were not involved in carrying things. Individual smaller Banjara groups were also moving, but they used to move only in a very localized areas, not 30, 40, 50 or 100, 200 miles, but in small regions, 1 or 2, 3, 4 families as individual Banjara groups were also moving, but interregional and larger region trade was in bigger groups. So these Banjaras played a crucial role. Second such were Bhutias, as I said, who were bringing in weather conditions when there was snow and all in the hilly regions, then they would come towards the plains and bring their commodities and all. Similarly, from here they will buy commodities and take to hills and all, and some other localized groups in different regions of the country. Second merchant groups was who was doing at the local level retail marketing through shops and having their shops in the markets and all established. They were handling business activities within a town or within a small place or a larger town through their shops. And the general pattern is that in a series large number of shopkeepers are there, and their residences were on top of the shop. And generally what we get references like this, say in Patna only there were 600 kirana shops, say in 1595 or around 1600 they say. So that shows how the whole 3 kilometers stretch, they say, is like a market. Within one town there are 3 or 4 specialized markets for different commodities. So that means a large number of merchants were moving where transactions and lakhs of rupees were being handled, especially in bigger towns and shopping centers.
But these merchant, Professor Khan, must be the settled merchants, not moving like the itinerary merchants, the Banjaras, yes, they are not.
That is what I said. Now I am moving to the second category of merchants who are there. Then the third category of merchants is those who are handling large scale inter-regional trades and all. The general popular perception or the classical Indian historical tradition, we feel that there was only Vaishyas who were doing the business activities or merchants. But Abul Fazl said there are 84 castes of these merchants and businessmen. Mirat-e-Ahmadi, another work of the 18th century, actually names all 84 castes of these, subcastes of these merchants. So if we go give you a broad idea, main merchant communities or groups who were in different parts of India were mainly, if I talk about northern India, then mainly Vaishyas or Agarwals or what we call Baniyas popularly, where many were Jains and all. They were the main business groups or people involved in that. In Punjab, Khatris were the main group, and again Multanis were the main business groups. These Khatris could be even Hindus, Muslims, or even Sikhs who were handling the business. Similarly, in Gujarat and western region, again Baniyas were the groups, or Bohras among the Muslims, Bohras and Kachhi Memans, two important groups who were handling large scale business operations. In Gujarat and western areas, Parsis was another group who was handling large scale business, and they were mainly communities known for their business acumen and handling large scale trading. In south again there were specialized groups like Chettis, Komatis, Chulias, and in the Kerala area even Mopalas who were handling business. Even Syrian Christians in the later period, they emerged as main merchant groups and businessmen. So that way different regions had their own bigger businessmen and traders, and what were the size of their operations I will come later on. First let me finish this classification. Among the foreign merchants, large numbers were regulars to India who were handling individual trades, and among these the most important and significant group was Armenians who came from Central Asian region bordering Europe, and they were the main business groups who handled large amount of trade, especially in the Bengal and eastern region, and they had such a understanding. They were known for their business acumen throughout the world, and even the East India Company and all was handling them or interacting with them to understand the business and knowing the business practices in India. Another such foreign group which was very, very important was Jews. In India they were not in so large numbers, mainly in western coast and all. Otherwise Europe was teeming with these Jew businessmen and merchants, and they had all the business of Europe in their hands in different parts. Arabs were quite active in India in the southern part, especially Kerala and some parts of western India, where they were mainly oceanic merchants. Through the seas they were involved in business, which had declined after the coming of the Europeans. But in the
particularly Arabs, when the importance of Cambay increased, the foreign merchants, the Malik-ut-Tujjar became he was a foreign.
Then there were individual Europeans who were handling the trade. And one important thing emerged with the coming of the Portuguese is that Europeans had long-term interest and large-scale business operations. To begin with, these were Portuguese on the western coast, but gradually from 1600 onwards, British East India Company, French East India Company, Dutch East India Company, and even Danes and all entered the Indian markets, and they started business, large scale operations and all, and they had their own structures, and they were mainly involved in overseas trade. So this was the large range of merchant groups who were operating in India. But how were these Indian merchants, did they have any standing vis-a-vis these European companies? Many of you wouldn't know or will be surprised to know that one individual merchant of Surat, say Mullah Ahmad Ali or Mullah Muhammad Ali, they were such big merchants that their number of ships and all they owned were much, much larger than the whole of East India Company in operating in India. As compared to them, they were handling much more trade. Actually, what we think of trade, then we talk of only these companies, East India Company and French East India Company, but in actual practice, the total volume of trade handled by the individual merchants was much larger than these companies. But still, since that was dispersed or that was divided, it doesn't seem such huge amount.
Virji Vohra and Shanti Das, the Nagar state of Gujarat.
What is one important aspect only I'll talk about merchants is that merchants were having their larger organizations. Dr. Abha, if you would like to talk about Mahajans and their Jagat State and Shreshthi.
Actually, yes, Professor Khan was discussing about these big merchants, about the Nagars. Actually, they had their own organization through which they were, for each particular commodity in which they were trading, they had a separate organization called Mahajan, and the group of Mahajan. During the 17th century Gujarat, we get as many as 53 Mahajan organizations. So it was, that's the recorded one. There must be n number of Mahajan organization, and these Mahajan, over these there was one Nagar Seth, Virji Vohra, Shanti Das. They were very, very powerful Nagar Seth who were, this Nagar Seth was so powerful that he was the mediator between the state and these merchant organizations. And though when Professor Khan would be speaking about the state interventions, then you would be finding that how Nagar Seth was not only just as a prominent merchant, but his power was so much. When Marathas attacked Gujarat, the Nagar Seth came to the rescue of the entire Ahmedabad, and he ensured that, look, don't attack Ahmedabad, and we will pay the requisite amount that you require, and he came to the surety of. So such was the power of the Nagar Seth.
Even when the Gujarat governor was harassing the merchants, and these Mahajans and all approached emperor like Aurangzeb, who was so powerful, he had to compromise with the merchants and take action against the governor even.
Not only the interesting aspect is that how, though I don't know, if we'll have time, you would be discussing about the state, how when during the War of Succession, Murad was stationed in Gujarat, and he asked the Nagar Seth, give us, he gave 5,50,000 rupees collected from the Mahajan organization and gave it for the War of Succession to Murad.
And later on Aurangzeb said, I will pay it. Even if that money was taken by his brother who lost, but he said it is my duty to pay that money. So that means they had a clout, economic clout as well as social status, and they were quite powerful. So here I'll stop on the merchants. We'll take up if we get more time.
I think since we do not have much time, so we can take a quick look over the most important and the key person, I would say, in the entire commercial, in the whole whether it's business practices or whether it's the personnel of trade or whether as a trader, multifaceted aspects that personality was having, that was Sarraf. Sarraf was the person, I will call, and here I would like to use the quote, often quoted quote, is known quote very well, but it is so important. Tavernier speaks, a village must be very small indeed if there is no sharaf, means sarraf in the village. So you can realize the importance of sarraf not just in a station at the urban center, but even each village, even a small, bigger village, each village was having a sarraf. So you can realize the importance. When I was speaking that how multifaceted roles he was playing, we have used the word of sarraf in relation to one and the other. The major three roles that he was playing, definitely one as a merchant, as a trader. He largely as a trader involved in the trade of gold, silver or jewelry. When I was speaking about Banarsi Das, he was also a sarraf, he was a jeweler merchant, he involved in that. But the two, so his role as a merchant, I need not elaborate, but his other two important roles are very, very important and crucial. One, he was working as a banker and he was working as the money changer, as a money lender. As when we speak about the first reference of sarraf as the money changer, we come across during the 13th century from Hemchandra's Kumarpal Charitam, and during the 14th century Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi refers these sarraf as the money lenders. So these are the first references of the sarraf in a role of money changer and money lender. When there was a question that was asked in the first session that how the Mughal coinage was worked, how the coins were exchanged, here the sarraf was playing a very, very important role, in the sense that the Mughal coinage was a free coinage. As Professor Khan was also speaking, that anyone could bring the bullion and get it converted into coinage. Who was the person behind that? These sarraf, though these were the private, but they were also very much part of the Mughal mint. They were the assessor of the purity of the bullion that was being brought. They were expert in judging the purity of the coin, purity of the metal, whether it's the gold, silver or any other coin. So it is their stamp that they certified. In return they get the cut as an assessor. So they not only just decided the purity of the coin, but they decided the currency rate. When again I would like to specify on that, the currency rate, whether it was a new coin or the old coin, so at what rate that particular currency should be taken or should be given, what is the assessed value, because that in the first session the student was asking that what is the value. Actually the Mughal coinage was having the face and the metallic value was the same. So how a coin of a 10-year-old definitely having not having that value as the current issue of the coin. So who was going to decide that? It is this sarraf who was deciding the current value of that particular coin. So sarraf was playing a very, very important role in as far as these in these coin Mughal as a Mughal mint officer. Then he was also a banker. As a banker, people can deposit the money. We were discussing in the first session how he was having Khulasatul Siyaq. Khususan Rai Bhandari says that how much was their saak, how much was their credit. So anyone could deposit the money to them and could get it on demand. Not only just that one could deposit, he was lending money on interest. He was also the important aspect, as Professor Khan was discussing the role of, while he was discussing about bills of exchange, was hundika. He was issuing the hundis as well as he was honoring the hundis. So the role of, I'm sorry that we do not have much time to discuss in detail the role of the sarraf, but he was the crucial man during these all commercial transactions. You just see that how multifaceted role as a banker, as a trader, as a money lender he was playing during this period, and the tremendous credit that he was having. Because of this, the entire commercial practices were during the medieval period went smoothly. So I would like to stop speaking on sarraf right now, because we have some more other important persons whose role was equally crucial. That is the one broker. The word dalal, we get the reference of this. I would like to know from Professor Khan and to it is for our student as well, that how did this whole word, the dalal is a foreign origin. So how, whether no dalals or brokerage or intermediaries were in operation during the pre-Sultanate period, or it is the novelty of the Sultanate period. So how this whole brokerage system was in operation during the medieval period? Professor Khan, please.
Thank you, Dr. Abha. Brokers or dalal is another specialized category of people who we notice are very, very active in markets during medieval period. Professor Kaiser, who was first to work on that, he feels that this is of a foreign origin words, Arabic word, and there were no equivalent word in India, and he says that there were probably no brokers in India before this coming of the foreign trading activities. There might have been on the coastal areas, definitely there were some middlemen who were doing all these activities, but brokers or dalals become a very organized and essential part of the overall business activity in the medieval period. That is beyond doubt. Actually, how this category emerged and why this category emerged is a question on which many historians have worked. Basically, with the, as I said in the beginning, medieval period, trading and commercial activities get a boost. A boom is there in the market. Production is increasing. Merchants are teeming. Everywhere they are roaming around to buy things and all. Now the problem is that people from distant regions are coming to buy things, but they are not familiar with the language of a place. Then they are coming from different regions. They do not know what are the production centers. They do not know what are the practices, how people transact in business, how they deal, what is the system of paying money, giving advances to ensure supply and all. And in such a situation, they needed some local person to help them. To begin with, these local persons were local traders. But in due course of time, as demand is increasing, then there is a need that a separate specialized group emerges, which comes to be known as dalals. So what were the reasons for the emergence of these dalals is, one, that people not familiar with the local language, they needed some help. They were not familiar with production centers, they needed help. They wanted to know what are the systems of operations of business, so they needed some local person, and they also wanted to have some guarantee so that they are not duped. So they would want to have help of somebody who will be their guarantor in making business deals at the local level. So all these things created a need for a specialized group, and thus emerged dalals, and they play a very important role in the whole business operations. What are the different types of dalals? Dalals were generally operating in different trading sectors. Say some were exclusively handling the cotton, some were exclusively handling the indigo, some were exclusively handling the textiles, बना हुआ कपड़ा, और उसका सबसे ज़्यादा दलाल शायद कपड़े के एरिया में ही थे, क्योंकि उसमें इतनी तरह की वैरायटीज और इतनी तरह की किस्में थी कपड़े के टेक्सटाइल प्रोडक्शन में इंडिया में मिडिवल पीरियड में, कि उसके लिए एक हाईली स्किल्ड आदमी जो जानकार हो लेना चाहिए. क्या दलाल को क्या ट्रांजैक्शन में फायदा वगैरह कैसे होता था? दलाल्स जो थे उनको जनरल रेट तो 2% था. दलाल को हर बिजनेस ट्रांजैक्शन पे 2% मिलेगा, एक फ्रॉम बायर एंड 1 फ्रॉम द सेलर. एंड बट depending on the difficulties in finalizing a deal, depending on the scarcity of certain items and making them available, this commission will fluctuate and will go higher up if there is a demand. If there is a more competition among the buyers to buy the things, then they would charge more than that. Generally, 3 or 4 types of dalals can be classified into different types if we want to. Number 1 were those dalals who were independent operators who will be making any deals in the marketplace, whoever they get. And a common level of dalals which you recognize even today, we say he is a dalal, he is making some deals and all. Second category was who were employed by certain merchants on a regular basis, and they were getting regular salaries, and they will be making deals and getting things for them. Then the third category would be those who were big business houses or East India Company or such companies were employing as part of their establishment, and they were making deals for them. And fourth category was those dalals who state will engage and give them a fixed share or salary and get things for the state and their requirements. So these were different categories of dalals. Mainly different communities people were in the dalals. I'm not going into very many details.
Professor Khan, it would be interesting because state was the autonomous and was all powerful, interfering with the with all activities during the medieval period, as the impression is most centralized bureaucratic empire the Mughal Empire was. So it would be interesting to look into, because state was playing the dual role, because it was state has to ensure that the money lenders, if giving money to the peasant, whether he is oppressing, because peasant had limited capacity. Supposedly a money lender has given money to the peasants, and if at the harvest time, because normally they used to take their share back at the harvest time, if they take the entire amount, then what would happen to the peasant? And the state would be in great trouble, because then peasants will flee. So how the state was balancing between these money lenders, because on the other side was that money lender, the state themselves required money for the for various operations, and not only this, state also required, because they were not having the money even for their takavi in Rajasthan. We get definite evidences that for takavi the state was taking the loan and then giving it, distributing to the peasant. So what role actually the state was playing vis-a-vis these money lenders, brokers, and overall trading business activities? What was the position of the state? If you could highlight on that, that would be interesting.
We have just 4 minutes now. I'll try to give a general idea of the state's role. Actually, in day-to-day business, state was not entering. It seems quite strange, but it is a fact that the state was so powerful, but still, what state was doing generally for the business was that a general peaceful law and order maintenance situation, which is essential for any business transactions or trading to take place. So they were providing that. Number two, state was controlling the minting of coins and all, where standardization was required. And therefore that was only state had a complete monopoly. Nobody else can mint the coins and all, because that was important. Third thing state was doing, that they will establish markets, they will establish sarais where large investment was required and others won't do, individual peasant merchants and all, where traders can stay and their security and safety can be provided. However, you may question me, if they were not doing that, then what was Alauddin Khalji doing? Fixing the market prices and dictating the terms. Actually, what Alauddin Khalji is doing is just an aberration. It is not the norm in medieval state.
That was a failure also immediately
after. That is why it is again and again referred that Alauddin Khalji tried to control a market for a specific need, but it was not very successful. It was very, very localized in Delhi or some smaller regions, and it was not very successful.
Even Professor Khan, Shah Jahan tried in terms of indigo prices, and it utterly failed. He had to withdraw the monopoly.
State used to intervene, but only in those commodities where state had direct interest. Say for example, saltpeter state would require to make gunpowder and all. Say for example, if a state is requiring say marble for Taj Mahal, then they will be regulating the price, or if they are coming and going and all these things. So state was interested only in those commodities, only at specific timings when they were required for them. But the biggest weakness, as I see, among the overall relationship with the trade of Mughal state was especially Delhi Sultanate. It was not such serious, which was under Mughals, that individual nobles were indulging in trade. And that was a big threat, because individual noble, say for example Shaista Khan, who was governor of Bengal, he is very powerful. He has a mansab of 6,000, 7,000. He is a governor of the whole such a big province. And that governor decides, I will do trading. And what he is issuing orders to East India Company, you will not buy commodities from anybody except me. Now he is trying to establish his monopoly, and state is not able to stop him, because there was no restriction on the nobles to have their own trade. Mir Jumla, he is indulging in large scale trading. Even prince or princesses are sending their ships.
Princess
Jahanara had shipped, and they were indulging in trade. So what was happening in such a situation? There was a situation of clash, where big nobles, important governors, they are indulging in trade, and then clash is coming. So state otherwise is confined to charging taxes, providing law and order security, providing markets and sarais, giving minting of coins and all. So they were confining themselves to those activities, and clash was not the norm. At times there were clashes and all, as we already discussed, that how there were ways were found through the merchant organizations and guilds and all, and they will negotiate with the state to have a smooth conduct of trade.
In one word, we can say that it was a free trade economy rather than the state was.
Controlled.
It was not state control. State was not as interfering. Only at very we get very stray references of the state interferences, and that too utterly failed. With these few words, we close it, and thank you very much for being with us.